call the Thursday, March 2nd, Forest Lake Area School Board meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
We pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you please take a roll call?
Yes. Member Radeline?
Here.
Member Corcoran? Here. Member Hagelin?
Here.
Member Peterson?
Here.
Member Rayfield?
Here.
Member Christensen? Here. Member Tyson? All here.
All right. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll move on to scheduled and unscheduled visitors. Member Hagelin, Member Tyson.
Yes, we had a great listening session. We had 10 attendees tonight. We had a retired employment that worked in transportation, bringing some concerns to our attention, particularly about the mechanics. We had a parent interested who had a daughter of a 9th grader in getting involved in the PTA at the high school and with parent groups, and had some questions around that. We had another question about e-learning versus snow days, and the superintendent clarified that. We also had a discussion about Monday's ice day and how that was a really difficult day all the way around for everyone, the decision making and the drivers, and just how that was a difficult day. And we can't predict the weather in Minnesota. It was a tough day. We also had a suggestion from a parent about homework help in elementary, particularly for the 4th and 5th grade, expanding ways to offer homework assistance beyond the programs we have, such as WIN. Also a possibility she's interested in a special ed parent support group, and talked about the difficulties with some that her children are having with the Google Classroom. And that concludes my report. Did you want to add anything?
All right, we will move on to student achievement. We have a student report, FLHS Rise. Mr. Caldwell.
Thank you, President Peterson and Dr. Massey and the rest of the school board. Again, it's our honor to be here tonight. We have our RISE group, which I think this is the first time they've presented to the school board. It's a relatively new group here at the high school, led by Kirsten Laidlaw and Sarah Stromberg as part of a grant and a partnership with Fairview. So with that, I'm going to ask Ms. Laidlaw to come up and she'll introduce the students who have about a 10-minute presentation, and they're always happy to answer questions.
Thanks. Hi everyone, I'm Kirsten Laidlaw. I'm a health teacher at the high school, and I'm the student advisor for RISE. This is, so 2 years ago, the district received a positive community norms grant. And one of the grant deliverables is to have a student group at the middle school and the high school level. So we are representing the high school level tonight. And the goal of the grant and our club is to correct misperceptions around chemical use in the community while promoting the positives that we already have going and make our community stronger. So with that, I'm going to introduce our student members tonight. And they're going to tell you a little bit about what we've been doing and some ideas that they have for the future. So I've got Maddie is up first, and she's going to introduce the rest of the students. So thank you.
Hi, we're the Forest Lake RISE Club. RISE stands for Rangers Impacting Student Experiences, and today we want to share messages where they can do. Most Forest Lake students choose not to drink alcohol in a typical month and speak out. Earlier this month, we attended the YLA meeting with other Minnesota schools that have the same objectives as our group. In the YLA meeting, we talked about many ways to get our messages out and what we would like to do better in our community. A few things that we found to be the most prominent problems in our community were student athletes with chemical use and drunk driving in our community. We came up with these hopes and concerns for our community as a resort to these problems. Our first one is that we're concerned with the number of student athletes that get chemical violations and hope they can find other activities to do. Our second concern was that we're concerned with people ruining their lives by drunk driving, and we are hopeful that these people will learn from their consequences and not make the same mistake.
Hi, I'm Reese. And on this slide, you can see the data that we collected in 2019 about the Forest Lake students using drugs and alcohol. We have results about vaping and alcohol, as well as student perceptions about those who use and where students gain access to these things. We use this data to support our group in receiving the PCN, or Positive Community Grant. With these surveys, we are most relieved to see that a large number of our students in grade 8 to 12 have never vaped. We hope to further this data with more PCN surveys in the future.
Hi, I'm Michaela Foss. I'm going to be telling you guys about what we've done this year so far. So the first thing that we did is we hosted a trampoline park event at Zero Gravity. And we did that so that we could get students on a Friday night to do something other than using chemicals. And that was what we came up with. So we had almost 100 students attending, and it was a good turnout. And then we do the PCN surveys that is sent out to students and their parents. And we got a pretty good response with that at almost 2,000, I think. And then we attended the YLA meeting day, and we furthered our education about what we can do to help our community and our school and our students. And then our middle school Rise Club, they're hosting a Ninja Anywhere event in April, so that it's the same as a trampoline park, but for the middle school, so try to get students away from chemical usage.
Hi, I'm Isabel Schumacher, and I'll be talking about our future plans. So first up, coming up this year, on April 14th, I believe, we will have Pretzel Day, where we will be handing pretzels to every students as they walk into school with messages saying, as most FL students have not vaped or drank alcohol. And then we have another plan for prom that we want to have a photo booth set up so students can take some pictures there. And then at graduation, we'll want to get photographers, and they'll have business cards, and we want to so they'll have the business cards information of the photographers, and then also a message towards parents and students about vaping or drinking alcohol. And then we also want to do planning something for a homecoming event next year to just spread out the message of being safe at homecoming parties and not drinking alcohol, and you can still have a good time there. And then we also want to set up more PCN surveys for next year to find more results out about our students.
Are there any questions?
I want to start off with, tell us a little bit about yourselves outside of the group that you're involved in.
I'm Michaela Foss, and outside of Rise Club, I'm also in SAD and DECA. And then in my free time, I'm on the Forest Lake dance team, and then I dance at the Dance Factory.
I'm Isabel, and then outside of Rise, I'm a link leader, and then I am also part of the Forest Lake dance team, and then I also dance at a studio.
I'm Reese, and I'm also part of the Link group. And outside of Rise, I am on the Forest Lake dance team, and I dance for the Dance Factory.
I'm Maddie. I'm also on the Forest Lake dance team. I'm also in Link, and I also dance at the Dance Factory.
Very active. I love it. That's great. No, I'm excited to learn a little bit more about this program. I've seen my kids bring home the cups and just the various things that you hand out in the schools, and it definitely gets them talking about it. I think it's a positive impact, and I enjoy seeing that students are so involved in that. One question I did have about the PCN survey is just how often are those done, and what's your target for those?
They're done, I think, once a year, and it's kind of for us to see where we need to go, what we need to take, and if we want to lower it, if we're at a good spot, just kind of a gauge for what we're doing.
To pinpoint areas of our community that we would like to better for ourselves and to help everybody else.
What kind of feedback do you get from your peers on the survey or the different events that you put on?
The trampoline park was a big hit. A lot of people loved it.
Yeah.
We had a bigger turnout than we thought we would.
Yes. We did. I think people enjoyed that it was something different. Like, not a lot of clubs can do that and just bring the school to a trampoline park. So I heard a lot of positive feedback from that, and a lot of people that I didn't expect to come did come. So it was cool to see that we're actually making a change.
That was a good move. Invite the board next year. Some of us would probably spectate more than anything. That's all I have.
I had a question, and maybe it's for Mr. Caldwell. How does this group go with the, is it the SPAEC, the Substance Prevention or is it,
Yeah, so that's the
So-
community coalition,
okay,
and then this is the student group that is an offshoot of that.
okay,
So
so they,
same data,
okay,
same like surveying, but within the school is this group.
okay, thank you.
So I'm curious, what inspired you guys to be part of RISE?
Well, I heard about it through a mutual friend because he posted on his Snapchat story actually, telling people to come to the meeting. And I was at work and I go, Izzy, do you want to go to this Rise Club meeting with me? So we went and we learned more about it and we thought it was really cool. So then we got Matt Andrews to join, and then since then we've been going bi-weekly, or not bi-weekly, every other week to meetings since September.
Well, because it seems like you really embrace the message and find the importance of it. Do you feel like the events you're hosting and the messaging you do, you're really reaching the student population? And
I think we are. We've gotten a lot of student engagement and like feedback of people saying that it's made them like think more about what they're doing and what they're consuming.
I think a lot more students, since we've been handing out things and we have our flyers on the wall for the trampoline event, a lot more students are aware of our club, and we like send the message out so like more people can join.
it's such valuable work, and I just want to thank you for continuing this work and for all the great ideas you've come up with. That's exciting. So thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
I had a question about age groups. I know it's 9 through 12, so is it kind of varied with who's been attending, or is it more the younger? I'm just curious if it's reaching like across the board with all
We
the
also
ages.
have a middle school Rise Club. We don't really meet with them, but they also have their own ideas and their own events, like their ninja event coming up. Our high school Rise is mostly juniors and seniors, I would
There's
say.
a few sophomores.
Yeah.
We haven't quite reached the freshmen
Freshmen
yet.
yet?
They're not there
Yeah.
yet. And then how many are in your group? I see 4 of it is there, in your,
It varies who comes every week because you can just come or not come. I don't know. There's around like
I would say
15 to 20. Yeah.
great.
It's definitely grown since my first meeting that I went to.
This is the second year?
Yeah,
Yes.
second year.
This is our first year.
This is our first year.
Yeah.
Okay. And you guys are juniors, seniors, what?
We're all juniors.
You're all juniors, so you have one more year.
Yeah.
So you keep growing the program.
We'll
Well,
do
thank you
freshmen
for
next
your
year.
work and all the creative ideas to engage students. It's really important. So thank you.
Exciting.
Anyone else? Well, thank you guys so much for presenting
Thank you.
tonight. All right, we will move on to positive happenings. Anyone? Member Christensen?
So this month I went to the Black History Month celebration February 9th at the high school. And I was really impressed with the talent of our students, especially our middle school students. I wish I would have written down the young lady's name, but she sang and some of them did poems. And I was also really impressed with the middle school staff participation. The principal was there, and there were several counselors there, and I know the gym teacher was there, so that was really exciting. And then I also saw Mary Poppins Jr., which was super cute. That is the Children's Performing Arts program, so it's not an actual district program, but they use our facility, and a lot of kids were in it. I think that was maybe K6 or something, but super cute, and that was a lot of fun. And then I also went to, and I didn't know we did this, but the Powder Puff volleyball game, which was really fun. The boys are on the teams, and then the girls are the coaches. And that was on a Monday night, and the high school gym was packed, and super exciting. People cheering, it was really fun. And then we also hosted wrestling team sections February 17th in the gym. And I just want to say I don't think I've ever seen such a great crowd. And the student section was amazing. We lost to Anoka by 3 points, which was a bummer, but so impressed with the turnout for the team sections. And then starting tomorrow, the high school has 5 varsity wrestlers competing in the individual tournament, 5 of them, Dayton Dale, Parker Leiden, Jacob Aho, Grant Marr, and Mark Rendell. So good luck to them. Hopefully we'll be bringing home, definitely placing this weekend. So it's been a fun month. Thank you.
So I'm disappointed to see winter sports end because like I've shared with this group before, I love watching basketball, both boys and girls. Another thing I was able to do in this last month was attended the musical concert earlier this week. Those students really had to scramble because it was an e-learning day and then they had a concert that night. So we got to watch both the rehearsal and the concert. Kids did great. The leadership did great. They are leaving for Texas, a number of select students. I believe it's Texas tomorrow. So I hope they have a really exciting trip. I hear these band trips, it's band, orchestra, and choir that make the trips. I hear they're extremely exciting and a lot of fun for the kids. So I hope they enjoy that. The last thing I was able to do is this evening on my way to our meeting, I stopped at another meeting of even greater importance, the Columbus PTO meeting. And I say the PTO meetings are of greater importance because they're doing so many good things to connect so directly with the students and the staff and the bus drivers. And they shared with me that they had their bus driver appreciation day. I think they said it was yesterday or this morning. And they had their bus drivers come in, they served them warm breakfasts, and they really, they just really enjoyed themselves. And I think now, especially with transportation being so difficult, that's critically important. And I was so excited to hear that. And some of the other great things that are going on at our local schools. I'm sure our other schools are doing it too. I just haven't had an opportunity to stop in at their PTO events. So I did want to share that with this group.
Piggyback on a member rebel line there with the bus driver appreciation day. So one of my son's teachers had my oldest son write a note to their bus driver, and my bus driver, or his bus driver, reached out to me and shared the note with me via text message and showed what he wrote. And he had written on there that he's so happy in the morning to have the bus driver greet him by name and welcome on the bus, and at the end of the day, wish him a good night. And it wasn't my son just saying something to be nice. He honestly means because, and I think that's really important because the bus driver is the first person from the school that they see every morning, and the last person they see there every day. And when he greets both of my sons by name, they feel like their day's getting off on a good start. And when he wishes them a good night and gets them off the bus, that's kind of the nice end of their day. So, I mean, on top of the bus driver shortages and the inclement weather and everything else they're dealing with, they're also the first and last people that the kids see every day. And it just reiterated the importance that they play, not just to get our kids to and from school safely, but to put them in the right mindset for the day.
Yeah, our bus drivers do great work. Anyone else?
I just have a couple of things. I was heading out Wednesday morning, invited by Principal Gretchen Matson to go to Linwood for their staff meeting. And of course it was snowing heavy, and the farther I got, I was like, oh. So I don't have those nerves of steel like her bus drivers. So I turned around, I'm really looking forward to rescheduling that with her and meeting the staff at their staff meeting. But anyway, I wanted to mention just a couple of dates. The Taste of the Lakes, which is Lake Center for Family and Youth, is going to be at the Scandia Creamery in April 20th, actually. And then I also want to talk about MSBA and MASA. It's an advocacy day on Monday, March 20th. And I like to do the morning section that starts at 7:30 till noon. You kind of come in and have a continental breakfast, and then they give updates, legislative updates, and then you travel over to the Capitol and you meet with legislators, and you can even attend the Senate Education Policy Committee or talk to whomever the superintendent suggests that we talk to. So that's a couple of dates for you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Gail, I was able to make.
Did you go?
I was able to make it on Wednesday. My typical 4-minute commute took me 9 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So it was a little over double my time to get to Linwood. But we did put in a good word with you, with the staff, and mentioned that you'd be coming out at a later date, and they're looking forward to that.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Well, I look forward to the kickoff for the trap team. My son will be shooting on, so that's exciting.
Oh,
Yeah, we had a meeting the other night for uniforms and such, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Amazing. And I forgot one thing, I so apologize. I was gone, but I came home and read this article. I read it online, but it was a great article by Principal Laurie Sheldman from Wyoming, if anybody wants to read it, gearing up for kindergarten. You know, we always are excited when it's kindergarten roundup and, well, they call it Explore Kindergarten, but if anybody wants to look that up online, that was a great article by Principal Sheldman.
Is the track team still looking for sponsors for uniforms? I haven't had a chance to call them back.
I believe they have the uniforms paid for. They had a booster club do a really great job fundraising, is what I was told, so, last year. But I know they would always take sponsors, so.
I'll have to reach out to them again. I hope that ship hasn't sailed.
See no more, we will move on to reports. Workshops and conferences, anyone? No? We'll move on to 9:16, Member Tyson.
Yes, we had our meeting last night. We had quite a robust meeting, which concluded with closed session. We had the superintendent's report, which was great. She gave us an update on their strategic plan, which goes from 2022 to 2026. They have a strategic advisory group that's met, and they've achieved 13 of the 22 benchmarks. So I'm just going to read what their strategic actions are quickly. They have equity is continuous and challenging process in which we must work to recognize and reduce assumptions and biases to understand the needs and potential of those who we support genuinely. So 916 uses equity to guide all interaction, decisions, and instructions. So equity is systematically removing barriers to student success. The next one is growing capacity to support student success. So that's professional support and development. And the last one is creating the conditions for student success. A vision for student learning is that they will use viable standards-based curriculum, evidence-based instruction, aligned to meet the needs of our students and student-centered learning. So they're excited to have, we are guided with our strategic plan, so they are very excited to have that updated. She also, in the superintendent's report, gave a lot of data. In the level 4 setting, they've had 85 intakes, and they also have 33 students that are ready to transition, which is a goal to transition back to the home school district. She said the directors met to support that transition in happening. So that concludes my report on 916. We also had went over the results of this board self-evaluation, which I was not included in, but it was interesting to listen to how they evolved through that. We approved the budget assumptions for 2023 and 24. We also approved a Raptor Technology contract, which is this new software. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Member Tyson. We'll move to buildings and grounds. Member Hagelin.
The contractor who did the engineering for the ice arena project came in and shared some updates. The ice was out of the field house the week of February 20th. The precast walls are going up in early May. They're going to try to keep the shell up as long as possible during construction to help with not having any work stoppages during then. Air duct updates, they're going to be updating the entire facility with new air ducts. New refrigeration systems, that's a 45-day install. It sounds like, as of right now, the tentative completion date is the end of August. They also talked about the roof maintenance is going to be pushed to the FY24 budget, is that correct? And the air conditioning in the gym is being pushed to the FY25 budget, which would mean the 26 graduation would be air conditioned. They also talked about the DNR water permit was approved for increased irrigation. The lifts in the auto shop were inspected and parts and repairs parts are on order and repairs being performed. Summer cleaning will begin during spring break due to summer school building use. So the staff from other schools will be shared for floor resurfacing at Forest Lake and Forest View. The upgrades to the door security system are in progress. And the observatory's telescope installation is tentative for March, weather permitting. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Member Haglund. City of Forest Lake, Member Christensen.
Yes, I was not able to attend the meeting, but I reached out to City Council Member Valento, and she passed along 2 things that she thought would be relevant for us here at the school board. She said in January they passed an ordinance which repeals and replaces the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission to create a new Parks and Recreation Commission. And this board will have 7 members, one of which will be a representative from the school, and another will be representative from FLA. The new commission hasn't started meeting yet, but they would like to start in April and will be meeting monthly. And she also added, which we'll be talking about later, of course, the city approved the selling of the parcel that the hockey rink at Fenway is on to the school. We'll be discussing that later. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Christensen. We'll move on to the Communications Committee, Member Rayfield.
Yeah, at the Communications Committee, the company that provides our website has kind of merged with another company, and they're changing the way, they're kind of moving more towards the newer company's way of doing websites. And so we looked at a couple of different flavors of how our website could look that this other company kind of provides. Talked about, how easy to use they were, and just kind of try to place ourselves in the place of a parent looking at them. And that was primarily what we talked about, is seeing how that website's coming together.
Thank you, Member Rayfield. We'll move on to Community Education, Member Christensen.
Yes, I went to the meeting was on Zoom, the Community Education Advisory Council, and on February 20th, and Kyle Young, the athletics coordinator for Community Ed, gave a presentation, and he is, I mean, a lot of our staff is good, but he is good. Holy mackerel. He said that we have almost 600 plus kids on 50 plus baseball teams. And he has to put the kids on the right team with ideally 2 coaches per team. The coaches have to have a background check and concussion protocol. And he does that all in his head and in software that he created. Someone asked a question, is there, like a software that someone created that you just punch it in there? And he goes, well, no, I have a background in sports management, and I just put it all together. And it was really amazing. And he talked, about hockey, and there were some questions about how some of the FLA programs then go into the sports clubs or associations, and talked about that. But so last spring and summer, he said there were 3,100 enrollments in all of our athletic programs, which is up 600 kids from last year. And some of those kids are in 2 different things, but it was really interesting to learn about that. And he also said, which I thought was pretty cool, Community Ed has purchased a robot painter, which will paint the lines at all of the fields. And he said, I think Kyle himself did one of the fields, and it took him 3.5 hours. And the robot will do it in 22 minutes. So, I don't know. But it's a fun group, and Community Ed is doing a lot of really amazing things. So, it was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Member Christensen. We'll move to Curriculum, Instruction, and Equity. Member Remeline.
So let's see, later tonight we will be discussing the Achievement and Integration Plan. I think we're in the initial review of that report. So I'll just briefly cover that. We also talked about some of the middle school course evolvement and how that's going to really work into the career pathways of the high school. I believe we kicked that off in 7th grade this year, so we're focusing on 8th grade for next year. And then we also talked about the events that have actually already been brought up, the Black History Month event on February 9th, World Social Justice on February 20th, and then Ash Wednesday on February 22nd, which was interesting with the weather this year. But that concludes my report on Curriculum and Instruction and Equity Committee.
All right, we'll move to Finance Committee. Member Corcoran.
We talked about fiscal year 23 budget status, the 24 budget planning, And we also talked about the conversation with the city and the purchase of land on the ground lease, which is on our agenda for tonight. Of course, we also get the updated legislative update, which is, Dr. Massey always does a great job with that. And it was just kind of everything on target, and it was a great meeting.
Thank you, Member Corcoran. We'll move to Policy Committee, Member Eveline.
Yeah, this will be another easy report for me because we have action items later in the meeting to discuss. So we discussed a couple of different policies. We'll hit on those later in the meeting. So I'll just leave the highlights for them.
Sounds good. We will move to staff welfare. I myself attended that along with Member Christensen. We discussed the transportation issues, the budget issue, right sizing, I guess, would be the appropriate terms for next year based on our enrollment. And then we also had a legislative update. Very exciting activity down at the legislature this year. So we'll move on to the superintendent report. Dr. Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are in the final year of our ESSER and COVID relief funds. Approximately $400,000 of remaining dollars that we are spending through the year with substitute teachers, mental health, behavioral intervention supports in our schools. Knowing that this is the last year, of course, we are planning from a budget standpoint how those dollars work through this year but also come to an end. Those dollars initially and continue through this year require an every 6-month update here on our safe learning plan related to COVID. We're in a far different place today than we were 3 years ago. I think we all understand that. We still, however, have a safe learning plan on our website that is available to the public and to our families. You'll see on that safe learning plan a number of different components and what our safe learning plan is. The most, I think, pertinent part of that plan is the notion that if you're not feeling well and you're sick, stay home. So it fits into the too sick for school concept that we have had for many, many years with respect to influenza and other illnesses. So that concept fits into a student who might, or a staff member who might contract COVID as well. Too sick for school and the regulations and the guidelines that are provided related to that. We have information regarding district policy with respect to masking, hand washing, cleaning schools, ventilation, screening and testing, vaccines, and how all those different things have shifted over the last number of years. So it's a requirement that we provide that quick update every 6 months, so that meets that obligation in terms of keeping the board informed of that. Are there any questions on the Safe Learning Plan and those components before I move to off that topic? Okay, thank you. Quick update on the legislature. We have been waiting for the February forecast. So this week, the February forecast was released, if you will. And what's unique to this forecast in comparison to the February and the December forecast is the legislature decided for the first time in many, many years to factor inflation on the expenditure side. They factor inflation on the revenue side, but not the expenditure side. So bills were passed just in time for this budget forecast to include inflation on the expenditure side. That was calculated and anticipated to be about a $1.5 billion cost to the state when inflation is factored into the expenditure projections, the revenue projections. So the previous forecast was $17.6 billion, and there's been a lot of legislative work around that number. And the House and Senate, the governor's budget came out in January per statute. The Senate and the House budget needs to wait until the February forecast. So with that out, they can start their work. The February forecast with the inflationary component is $17.5 billion. So when you consider inflation eating up $1.5 billion of that number, essentially that's a $1.5 billion increase to to the 17.6. So if things were good from a surplus standpoint before, they've gotten to own the bill. Now we are in a window where the House and the Senate will put their budgets out there. They then will negotiate their budgets with the governor's budget, and then that will lead its way toward spending bills. And of course, we have our eyes on the education spending bill in particular as that begins to move forward. Our transportation bill was successfully heard in the House several weeks ago, laid over for inclusion in the omnibus education bill. We are waiting for a hearing date in the Senate, although that's not required. The fact that we have been laid over for inclusion in the House means that our companion bill in the Senate will also be included or considered for inclusion in the education bill. That will make up for us, the bill is written to make up 70% of our deficit, which is close to $500,000 a year. We're paying close attention to per pupil funding increases, special education cross-subsidy increases, cross-subsidy related to English language learner expenses for the district, bills related to spending for mental health and school counselors and resources for families. There is a lot of competition for $17.5 billion. 5 to 6 billion of which they can commit to ongoing expenditures. The remaining are really one-time expenditures. So the Republicans came out with their bill this week, and there are a lot of tax decreases, tax relief, and dollars back to taxpayers. And now we're waiting for the House and Senate budgets. So a lot of activity. This is an extremely busy time at the legislature. I will continue to provide ongoing updates for the board as those bills come out and get heard and move along the process. At the last school board meeting, we gave an update on transportation. And one of the recommendations we made to the board, and you advised administration to proceed with, was a bus opt-in concept, transportation opt-in for families. So we now have an internal committee planning that process. It is robust with early and often and ongoing communication to families, including what we know will be a need for phone call outreach to families who don't fill out the form. We will make sure that we connect with and talk with every single family that we need to before we route the system and we start moving kids around for school next year. So we're excited about that. We think it's going to allow us to create an even more efficient system, which will help hopefully with driver shortage challenges as well. So that concludes my report. I'll certainly stand for any questions.
Questions for the superintendent's report?
Is the legislative session over? We'll have one more finality.
Yeah, that's going to be May 20th or 23rd, somewhere in that range. I don't have the exact date, third week of May. Typically, when there's a lot of competition between parties, it goes to a special session because they just can't agree in time. Now with one party control, we don't expect a special session, so hopefully we can be done in May and we'll know what resources we're working with as we put the final touches on the budget.
Well, I did want to mention I was down at the legislature today on a carpenter-related issue, and I did mention the need for education monies. And one of my good friends at the legislature reminded me that only $5.5 to $6 billion of that is recurring money. The rest of it was one time. And I reminded him that we are capable of spending one-time money as well.
Yes.
Yes, I just wanted to ask the superintendent and make a comment. I wasn't here for the meeting for the report, and I read it online and read the information, and I'm wondering if the committee, I read Mr. Rayfield's comment about automatically opting in K through second grade. And are they going to be considering that in that group, or?
You know,
I just thought that was a great idea.
Yeah, we're having that conversation. We're consulting with other districts that have launched this program. At this point, we're optimistic that we will be able to communicate and reach out to every single family. That's 3 grade levels 1,200 families, kids, that potentially we could have many, many opt-outs that will allow us to be even more efficient. So we would love to have those grade levels be part of the opt-in program. But if we're not reaching kindergartners, new families, then we'll certainly revert to throw them all into a bus route and we'll go from there.
That makes good sense. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to add to your comment about the one-time money. The thing that excites me the most about one-time money is it would really help us with our general fund balance. It would help us recover those monies. And I think that's important to think about if that does come to the district, that we really use that as a recovery opportunity for us. So yeah, we can certainly spend it, but we can certainly save it as well.
Well, so I think my intent there was that we can use it to offset in our
Absolutely.
general
Yeah.
fund.
I understand the intent. I just thought I'd add a little color to that.
Any other? All right, seeing none. At this time, we'll move on. 7, approve the consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving tonight's consent agenda signify by aye.
Aye.
Nays, motion passes. We'll move on to action items. 8.1, donations. Member Christensen.
Yes, we had a total of $7,990 in total donations, and the breakdown was $5,800 from various community members for our STEP community closet, $1,230 for our Substance Prevention Education and Action Coalition was the donor to the Rangers Supporting Rangers program, $720 again from the Substance Prevention Education and Action Coalition to the Community Scholarship Fund. We had $200 from an anonymous donor to the Lino Lakes Elementary STEM negative lunch balances. We had $40 from Target Corporation to Lino Lakes Elementary STEM School, non-designated, and various items, shirts, Post-it notes, scrubbing pads, etc. from Bob Gore to the Linwood Elementary School. And I move we accept these generous donations on behalf of Forest Lake Area Schools.
Yes. We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Yeah, just once again, I'd like to thank all our generous donors. It really does go a long way.
Any other discussion? All right, yeah, I concur. It's always so nice to see how generous our community is around our district. Hearing no further discussion, all of those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Nays, motion passes. We'll move on to 8.2, Forest Lake Area School Staff Retirement Notices. Do we have a motion for 8.2?
Move to approve.
Seconded.
Motion and a second. I would like to read the retirements. We have a Heidi Erickson, Dean of Students at Forest Lake Area Senior High School. She has 21 years of service. We have Elizabeth Haven, goes by Becky, in case some people don't know, it's Becky Haven, district-wide curriculum coordinator, 21 years of service. Kathy Reinhold, SAC site manager at Columbus Elementary, 34 years of service. And Kathy Voss, registrar at Forest Lake Area Senior High School, following 21 years of service for a total of 97 years of combined service. Yeah, I'd like to thank Joy for that. All right, do we have any further discussion on 8.2?
Well, I wish them all the best in their retirement, and I really want to thank Ms. Becky Haven. She's been such an asset to our district for many years, fulfilling many roles. She was my daughter's teacher. She's been curriculum coordinator, huge impact with the QCOM people. She's just been a valuable employee and a wonderful person, as well as all of them. So wish them all a wonderful retirement, much deserved.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving 8.2 signify by aye.
Aye.
Nays, ayes have it. We'll move on to 8.3, School Board Member Reimbursement Guidelines Policy 103A, Dr. Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It shall be the practice of the school district to reimburse school board members for expenses incurred in travel, where such travel is to represent the school district as a board member. And those guidelines are listed through this policy. The school board committee policy committee has reviewed this policy and are recommending only one simple change in the policy, and that's to reflect the school board stipend that was approved at the January 5th board meeting. With that, administration would recommend approval.
What's your pleasure with 8.3?
So moved.
Second?
A motion and a second, discussion? Member Haglund?
At the February board meeting, a presentation was given to the board proposing their route changes for the school busing and resulted in savings of approximately $70,000. This was applauded by all the board members as a great cost savings, which I agree with. At the January board meeting, the annual audit was presented. One area that was not widely discussed, however, was on page 6 of the management report here, which shows the unrestricted fund balance as a percentage of operating expenditures. For 2021, District 831 was at 4.7% compared to a statewide average of 23%. And in 2022, 831 was at 5.5%. And although there was no statewide data given, the available 10-year average was at or above 20%. And also at that January board meeting, I proposed lowering the board salaries that would have resulted in savings of approximately $30,000. A member of the board commented, if we start cutting the school board salary, what's next? Well, I'll answer that question is if we don't get our financial house in order, we will likely face a much tougher decision than cutting school board member pay, but having to make cuts to the district to keep it operational. I personally think that it's far more important to spend the district's funds on hiring and retaining quality teachers, providing quality educational material, and having enough bus drivers and support staff to continue operations. Some may argue, well, it's only $30,000. That's not that big of a deal. But if we find ways of saving where we can, little by little, it all adds up and can make a significant impact. I, for one, did not seek to be on this board to be compensated. I wanted to be on this board to give back to my community. And I'll leave you all with one final comment to consider. By voting to approve this policy, you'll essentially be voting to pay the board members the equivalent of what a sergeant in the Minnesota National Guard with over 6 years of service makes on a drill weekend. And a drill weekend is not just 2 days of pay, it's 4 full days of pay for that Guard member. I don't offer this comparison to marginalize what we do as board members, but to put it into perspective and reiterate my sense that this body should be considered volunteer and not compensated. And for those reasons, I will not be voting in favor of this policy and ask the board chair to be roll call, vote be taken via roll call.
Is there any further discussion? Member Eveline?
So I realize that the board has already acted on this topic, and accepting the change in policy is simply a matter of procedure. That said, I still think the increase is an irresponsible act. I believe that the board member compensation should reflect our performance as a body. Our pay should reflect the performance of our students, both in their academic success of today and the potential that we prepare them for tomorrow. Our pay should reflect our performance as it relates to the health and resiliency of district funds. Our annual audit reflected very poorly on our general fund balance and exposed the thin ice that we're on as a district before we need to start eliminating programs and positions. Our pay should reflect our performance as an employer, not just in job satisfaction, but also as it pertains to employee compensation and benefits as well. We have phenomenal students and staff members in our district that we expect to perform at their very best every single day. We should make that same commitment to them as board members, the leaders of our district. As leaders, we should be the first ones to sacrifice as we work to rebuild our fund balance and our goal of academic excellence. We should be cutting our compensation to $1 annually, the minimum that a statute would really allow, until we've restored both. We should take that upon ourselves before asking anyone else in the district or the organization to sacrifice. That's leadership.
Any further discussion? In the future, let's try and keep our comments germane to what's on the board agenda. And this is merely a policy change. We already had a kick at the can for salaries. You guys took that opportunity back in January. So if we could, let's keep it germane to what's on the agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Member Clerk, would you please say roll call?
Yes. Member Tyson votes aye. Member Raveline?
No.
Member Corcoran?
Aye.
Member Haglund?
No.
Member Peterson?
Aye.
Member Rayfield?
Aye.
Member Christensen?
Motion passes. All right, we'll move on to school board meeting policy 106, 84. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
A motion and a second, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving 84 signify by aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We will move to 85, award food service prime vendor, Dr. Massey.
That will have Director Rembert Ready and our food service manager, Paige Albright, give us some background and information pertaining to this item.
Thank you, Dr. Massey. Good evening, members of the board. Paige Albright is with me tonight. She's our director or supervisor of food service for the district. And so we had the opportunity back in January to go out for the RFQ, so request for quotes in our prime vendor for our food service. We were with our Sourcewell Joint Powers Agreement, and that was our final renewal of this school year. So starting next school year, we decided to do the Joint Powers Agreement with Centennial and Fridley. And so what we were able to do is on February 23rd, we were able to open up those quotes and see what we were able to get. We did have two vendors that did the quotes, so that was Cisco and Upper Lakes Foods. The three supervisors / directors from the districts got together and reviewed the bids. You'll see that tally sheet on the second page of your information. And so overall, Upper Lakes Foods was the one with 188 points awarded to them that would get the recommendation to be the prime vendor for our food service bid. Just looking at that score sheet on the back, a couple notes as to the points for differences, the major differences, computer capabilities, being one of them was the ability to have one site versus multiple sites, and then our customer service and food service consultant area was another one that had a bigger difference between the points. And again, it's really important that Upper Lakes Foods has a school nutrition person. We know the regulations that go along with what we have to do to put meals into our system. And so having that person at the company to help us with that is just invaluable. And so there's more points given to Upper Lakes because they have that. And then the last one, ability to meet the commitment of services. And again, the organization of the bid between the two, Upper Lakes, one document, 100 and some pages long. Cisco was 20 different attachments that came with that. So just discerning what we were able to really get from them was a little bit harder to do. And so also the references was the other area that Upper Lakes Foods gave us more comparable districts to us, and Cisco did not really have districts of our size and geographic area. So those were the main differences in the points area. So with that, the administration would recommend that we approve Upper Lakes Foods as our prime food service vendor.
What is your pleasure with 85?
Move to approve. Second.
A motion and a second, discussion? Member Evelyn?
Who is our vendor now?
It's Upper Lakes.
It is Upper Lakes, so we have no transition, none of that. Great, all my follow-up questions have been answered.
Member Haglund?
How much say does Upper Lakes or you have in the quality, the amount, or the content that is going into the breakfast and lunches? Is that, do you have some discretion over that, or is that mandated by state and federal programs?
Most of the requirements are mandated by USDA and federal government, and then Upper Lakes buys K-12 products. So they have a purchasing team that purchases from manufacturers, and then we only get a certain amount of food that they bring in for K-12 products. So limited with what K-12 products they have that they bring in. So other schools might be doing something else, but they might have a different distributor that has different K-12 products in there.
So back to your regulations and maybe a question of like meal size portions and other things really driven by content in calories, content in ability for, yeah, go ahead.
Fat, sodium, and calories are the three contents that we have to stay in guidelines with for breakfast and lunch with what we have to serve.
So if there's issues with, let's say, more carbs being served than a family would like or think is needed, or the portion size, the kid's not getting enough, where do those concerns go?
Those can go to your legislators with bringing it back to Washington, who house the USDA requirements for those. And breakfast is a very heavy grain-based meal pattern.
Perfect, thank you.
Any further discussion?
Just have one quick question. That's great to have that decided, I'm sure. So the food service consultant, I didn't realize we had that, and it sounds like that's a real valuable asset.
Yes, so Upper Lakes has a consultant, and she focuses on just day-to-day operations with what we need help with, getting products, getting stuff into Upper Lakes for us, finding nutritionals and CN labels that we need for requirements for the state, and then she attends all of the conferences that we attend so she can take that knowledge back to Upper Lakes to help us get what we need and help get prices lower for us as well.
Great, so she does help with the pricing, that was my next question.
Yes. Yep.
That's great, because, you know, it is very complex. The USDA pushes down what you guys need to do, and you really need to follow it to a T. You don't get to have a choice in that.
We went through a food service audit this fall. MD came out and went to our sites, and literally it is, which spoon are you using for the portions? What is happening? And everything. It's amazing the level of detail they get into with that. So it is a very, and then findings can come from that. So we do take it. We obviously have to take it very seriously, and we do. And so, yeah, the guidelines are there, and we follow them.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right. This is a budgetary item, so Member Clerk, would you please take a roll call?
Sure. Member Christensen?
Yes.
Member Tyson votes yes. Member Raveline?
Yes.
Member Corcoran?
Yes.
Member Haglund?
Yes.
Member Peterson?
Aye.
And Member Rayfield.
Aye.
Get us back.
I know, it's Sue, sorry.
Motion passes. We'll move on to 8.6, approved purchase agreement for Ice Arena land.
I get to stay up here. Yes.
Director Repper, you know what, I didn't mention it last time, but thank you for your team and all the food service folks who went through that exercise to vet out the vendors. I know it's a lot of work, so.
I did learn so much and appreciated Paige even more at the end of this process. And also her counterparts in other districts were amazing. So it was that team is just so knowledgeable and great. So tonight, back in 2013, the Forest Lake Athletic Association, we purchased the ice arena from them. As part of that purchase, we had the ground lease for the land that's underneath the ice arena. And so we've been talking at different meetings about the fact that the city is interested in a purchase agreement with us to sell it for $1 to the district. So up on the screen there is just the plot that they would look to be selling to us. I did also include in this presentation the next one. This is the lot. So also as part of this purchase agreement, we will be looking at doing a maintenance agreement on the parking lot, and that's in this parcel right here. It's something that's been going on for a long time. In fact, since we got the ice arena, we've been doing this with the city. It just formalizes it in writing, which is good for both parties. And so overall, this is an aerial view. So what you'll see is, again, in blue is outlined the land that we would now own, that the ice arena sits on. And then that parking lot across the street would be the maintenance agreement. And again, as it has always been, we would plow and then we would contribute a little bit to the upkeep of the parking lot. And again, we use that for our parking all winter long at the ice arena. If you've ever gone to an event there, it's likely the parking lot that you park in. So with that, the City of Forest Lake, as mentioned by Member Christensen, did vote on this earlier in the week. And so they are voted yes to enter into the purchase agreement. So tonight we would ask that the board also agree to the purchase agreement for the land and the ice arena. And again, the cost in the agreement is $1.
And if I could just add our appreciation for the collaboration with the city. You might recall when the city was contemplating and planning the roundabout at 97 in Goodview, there was a small parcel that the district owned, and we entered into a very similar agreement at that time. It was land that we weren't going to build any more school space on, and it made sense to cooperate and partner with the city on that. And there's a $1 land transfer to the city at that point, and they're reciprocating with this piece. So it's been a great partnership.
I move to approve the purchase agreement.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Member Rayfield?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm being nostalgic, but I remember back to when we bought that, and it was not, the public had mixed feelings about it, to say the least. And as a school district, we said, we've got the economies of scale, we can take over this arena, we can get it for a very affordable price, and we made that promise to the public, and that has been one of the smartest things we ever did. I went there to see a hockey game. My niece was playing the other day, and it was just, the building was just alive with people and stuff happening, and so I'm just thrilled. $1 seemed like a great price. I think we got the better deal from the city than they did with the other land, you know, but no, I'm so proud that we've been able to just turn that into a thriving hub for our community, and you know, hockey's such a great sport for kids around here.
Member Hagelin? I don't mean to put you on the spot, so don't feel like you have to answer if you don't know, but I have 2 questions for you. One, do you have like anticipated cost, what it will cost the district to maintain the parking lot, either through the snow plowing or if there's any crack sealing or anything in the summer? And then the second part of my question is, the land that's to the east of there, is that buildable land, or is there anything that can be developed on there in the future?
So you're saying the part that is dirt there on that lot? Yeah. So there obviously, we've heard a lot of plans from FLA to put an outdoor rink in that space. So that could be something. Also, parking could be a future if we choose to make it internal versus using their lot. So that could be future uses for that space. But beyond that, it wouldn't be anything structurally. It would just be either the outdoor rink or the parking most likely. And then to your second question, we did get the cost. So usually on an annual basis, just little maintenance is about $5,000. A redo of the mill and overlay would be around $50,000. A major repair, so they have a lifespan of about 35 years. So we're well into anything that would be more major than that. So it is a good investment.
Will we, as the district, be responsible for the sidewalks in the winter?
The city will still do the sidewalks,
Okay.
yep. They also do, on occasion, bring in bigger equipment, like if we get the huge one, and that will continue.
Member Hagelin just asked my question about the bituminous, so it'd be like 50 grand to.
Yep, a mill and overlay there.
We're way out for that.
Yep. So, and that, again, was, yes, we asked those questions when.
And that's a shared cost.
Correct, yeah, it wouldn't be 50 to us, that's the cost of the project, and we would have a percentage of that. You'll see the maintenance agreement come before you with what percentage that will be in the near future.
Okay. So I just want to add.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. I just want to add that this does signify just a great partnership that we have and a mutual respect with the city, and thank you to them for that. Just adding on to Member Rayfield, you know, we didn't know if this property could be shuttered. We didn't know what was going to happen to it, and it came under our parameters, and so I concur. I'm so glad we went for it with this arena. I hear great comments. I live right across and go to games a lot, and my nephew plays for Roseville Raiders, and those parents just brag on the Forest Lake Arena all the time. It's their favorite arena. After XL Energy, it's like they love it. It is. And if you go to games, it's just got a warmth, it's got a great, it's so visual, it's just really a fun place. So we had an awesome arena manager, so it's been a very successful run with our arena. So, and thank you for all your work on this as well.
Yes. As we always talk about FLA, what a great, I mean, that they got that built when we really needed an arena. I mean, we needed it done, and they really stepped up, and, you know, I know we had a great deal, and thankful for that, and that has been such a great community for our community to have that arena. So I always want to give a shout out to FLA, just because they were instrumental in getting this done. Lori Kummerow, the whole group.
Good point, Julie.
I mean, they worked really hard. So I was on the FLA board a long time, and they were very proud of that. And I know they worked as hard as they could to keep it going, and we were very fortunate to get it. A good deal, and great for our hockey community. So yeah, thanks again. It is a great deal.
I'm just really excited to see this PA come before us. I'd like to thank the group at the district that made this happen, and the group at the city that you guys work with. And when I first learned that we were leasing the land that the building was on, I looked at that and I started asking Dr. Massey tons of questions about what does that lease look like? Is this a long-term, what happens at the conclusion of that? Are we responsible for the building? So I just saw it as a great risk to own the building, but not the land. So I'm super excited to see this done. And I'd just like to thank all the groups that worked so hard to make this contract and get this done for us tonight.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, again, Member Clerk, would you please take a roll call?
Member Rayfield?
Aye.
Member Christensen?
Aye.
Member Tyson votes aye. Member Rabeline?
Aye.
Member Corcoran?
Aye.
Member Hagelin?
Aye.
And Member Peterson?
Aye. All ayes, motion passes. We'll move to 8-7, identify school makeup day. Dr. Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an extremely popular topic. We've had, needless to say, a challenging winter. You can see in the summary document here the state requirements by statute for minimum number of days and hours. You can see same number of school days at 165, 120 hours of instruction through the course of the school year are required by Minnesota statute for secondary students, grades 7 through 12, and 935 hours for students at the elementary level, grades 1 through 6. So a higher standard or more hours of requirement for secondary students. Thus far this year, we've had 2 snow days, we've had 4 e-learning days. Let me clarify that when we implemented e-learning, the statute allows us to have in place the ability to call 5 e-learning days that would count for instruction days. At the time, and still today, we have a cushion of 2 days before we would need to make up days based on these requirements. E-learning days count for instruction, and do not count against those instructional days. So the first 2 snow days this year, before winter break, were official, traditional snow days, no e-learning, no distance learning, typical snow days. The days subsequent to that, or 4 of them, were e-learning days. That leaves 1 e-learning day remaining. If we modify seniors' last day, essentially we have 1 more e-learning day, we buy a day by modifying seniors' last day. In doing that, we're simply bringing seniors back the last school day for graduation-related activities. We've done that many years. It's pretty typical for that. It's not an academic day, but we'll still count toward instructional days because it's a required day for kids to pick up cap and seniors to pick up cap and gown and prepare for the graduation ceremony. So all that to say that we have 2 days that we can work with. 1 e-learning day, the day we gain by the senior day. So it's March 2nd, and given the pattern of this winter, I think we'd be prudent to identify a day that we might need to make up if we go beyond those 2 days. Administration would recommend on the calendar that we elect Monday, April 10th for that makeup day. That day is currently scheduled as an instructional day for elementary and a professional learning day for secondary students. So buses are running, half the students are already coming in. It would allow us to buy a day back for secondary students that have a greater requirement. So administration would recommend that we identify April 10th as that makeup day, should we need that day. If we need additional days, there aren't days to work with after that. We'd be looking at adding days at the end of the school year. And we can visit that in subsequent board meetings if we get to that stage. So administration would recommend that we identify April 10th as a makeup day for secondary students, keeping us within those required statutory days for instruction.
What's your pleasure with 8-7?
Move to approve. Second.
Motion is second, discussion?
Yeah.
Member Ebeline?
I have some questions here. Monday, April 10th, if we approve that as an additional learning day, you said kind of an optional learning day. how much notice do you need to provide for families or students? What does that process look like?
Yeah, we would communicate right away with that is a potential makeup day. If we don't need it on April 10th because we haven't used those days, then that would be a day as currently planned. If we need a makeup day, that day would be converted to a makeup day.
Okay, so the motion in place here is to approve the addition of April 10th as a potential
Correct.
makeup day if it were needed on, say, April 9th. If we had recognized we'd used a snow day between now and then, we would add it as an instructional day. If we have not used it on April 10th, or by April 10th, the students would continue to have that day off as planned.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood the motion clearly.
Yes.
But you said the elementary routes is still the primary bus, they're still going to school, or not?
That's a school day scheduled currently for elementary students.
So it wouldn't be an extra expense to run the buses or?
We'd be running the
whole
secondary route,
Yeah.
which would be an added cost for that day.
I mean, the bus drivers were already going to be working
That's
for a
right.
day anyway,
That's
so it's like, not like adding an extra day for them, so.
Right.
Okay, so that's, okay.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by sign by.
Aye.
Nay, motion passes. We will move to 8.8, determine school board meeting locations. Dr. Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the February board meeting, the board approved the school board meeting calendar. There was a motion at that time to schedule school board meetings at different school locations and rotate meeting location. The school board directed administration to study the cost of that. So I would report back to the board tonight that, first of all, the cost for the current operation video capacity that we have in this room, at the time for the two hand zoom and rotational remote control cameras that you see here in the boardroom, and the related audio was about $6,500. So that's the investment that we have in this system today. We were actually pleasantly surprised that the cost for the equipment for a remote board meeting is relatively inexpensive, about $1,000. There are pretty advanced technologies that have a single device that can capture audio and video. It's not as nearly as robust and clear and effective as what we have here, but it, we think, would suffice to provide that option for the public. So that's the data and the information I would share with you for your consideration. I would also submit to you for consideration, without offering any bias here. This room is centrally located to the district. I think there's value to central location. And I think there's great value in bringing conversation to the community and engaging communities, members of communities in their community. I think there's value in PTO meetings, as was expressed earlier tonight. There's value in community conversations. Should the board decide to move this meeting to those locations, there's added value there as well. But I think there's also value in central convenience to the community. If you think about a community member that wants to attend a board meeting for one reason or another, who lives on one end of the community to go to the other end of the community, they would bypass this building to get there. And that adds inconvenience in that situation. Again, I don't intend my intent there is not to add bias, just to add content for your consideration.
All right. Well, 8.8 we have listed as discussion. It is an action item, so I guess we, in order to have discussion, should have a motion of some sort on the floor.
So I'd like to make a motion that we keep the meetings here.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a motion and a second? All right, I'll open it up for discussion. Member Eveline?
I'll speak to this because it was initially, I believe I presented the idea of having the board meetings in the communities. And I guess now I would have to vote no on the motion in order to make that happen. But there's a lot of reasons behind why I think that's a good idea. I've spoken with a lot of community members about this in the past few months. And again, at the PTO meeting tonight, I asked the group there, how would you feel about having a board meeting here in your building? And principal was there as well. And I asked him, how would you feel about doing your presentation, your building presentation here at your home? And there was a lot of excitement for that. And I do understand the central location, but I did see a lot of parents, I've seen a lot of community members really get excited about having us as a group in their location, in their experiencing their buildings and interacting with them directly. And I think that's what we lose if we just look at community outreach programs or we do other types of things, is when we get together as a group, it's a special thing. It requires public notice. It's something that can only happen on a regular schedule. It's a big deal. And I think it's a big deal that we share that with all of our buildings and all of our communities. And I do understand Dr. Massey's concern about having to drive past one building to another. But I really do think we have 24 meetings on the schedule every year. I think we have an opportunity, if maybe we do those in our mid-month meetings, and then we kind of spread out some of the presentations. I think it's something we really need to give some serious thought. And I guess if, I would like to add a motion to postpone a decision on the original motion until our April 6th meeting, so we can give this some serious thought.
We have a motion to postpone.
Second?
Second.
Did you second? I didn't hear you.
Yes, I did, sorry.
So we have a motion and a second, so discussion on the, I guess it would be an amendment or a motion to postpone the motion on the floor.
I just want to
Finish discussion.
finish discussion, that's what I was going to ask.
So we have a motion, so we had a motion on the floor, and then we had a motion to postpone, which supersedes the original motion. So now we're on discussion on the motion to postpone.
So we have to bypass the original discussion.
We can come back to it as soon as the motion to
Okay.
postpone, as long as the motion, if the motion passes, we won't, it'll be postponed to a future date.
So then member Raveline was the only one that got to
Yes.
discuss.
Yeah.
Which is wrong.
We can vote against the motion to postpone, and we can go back to discussion.
Yeah, I think we should finish discussion.
Any further discussion on the motion to postpone? All those in favor of postponing the motion on the floor, signify by aye. All those opposed?
No.
If you wanted to postpone it, the first one was aye. If you do not want, all those opposed, I have to ask for the opposition. No one voted in favor, so I have to ask for the opposition. Signify.
Opposition to postpone.
To postpone.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, okay.
We do that.
All right. All those in favor of postponing the motion as read, signify by aye. All those opposed to postponement, signify by aye.
Aye.
All right.
Discussion.
We will return to discussion under the original motion. Member Hagelin?
Thank you, member Chair.
I see value in both sides of this. It's a tough one. That's why I seconded Member Eveline's motion to postpone, because I agree. I think it deserves a little bit more thought and discussion, because I think back to the presentation we had from the Linwood principal. She was very passionate, had a lot of great information. I can only imagine how she would have loved presenting that, or giving that presentation in her own building. And we have a lot of great schools, and I think a lot of our community members probably don't get a chance to get into those schools, and we can have those meetings in the media center. I also agree with Superintendent Massey said about our infrastructure and having a meeting here, so that's why I think Member Eveline's motion to postpone until we give it some more thought and discussion and have some more facts behind it before we move on. I would agree with that.
Member Christensen?
I would just like to say, I think Member Reveline has some very good points about going out into the community. But I might just add that I think by having the meetings here, everybody knows where they are. So like if I want to come to a meeting and I want to, especially I think the listening sessions are super important, and members of the community come to the listening session. And I might decide at the last minute to come because of something that happened to my kid in school, or something like that. And I plan it, and I come here, and all the lights are dark, and there's a sign that says it's in Linwood, and I'm like, well, now I just missed it. So, but I would be very interested in coming to the schools in some sort of a, community meeting or some other event, which the school board members would be at, and it would be advertised or however you would say it, and to the parents, and this such a night will be at Linwood. There's a lot of value in that. I just worry if someone wants to come, especially to the listening sessions, because I've gone to several now, and I know a lot of different people come to those. I just worry that, the building would be dark, so.
Member Rayfield?
Yeah. I made the motion, so I want to speak to it. To me, I agree that it would be fun and interesting to go out to all the different schools. It's always fun to visit on site, but I kind of feel like, when we're talking about donations and, bids and food services and purchase agreements and all these things like that, when you go to an elementary school, it's the PTA and PTO that is really talking about that school, and the place where parents are kind of engaging. It's the activities, it's the science fair, it's all that stuff like that. And I mean, we might think school boards are really interesting, right? And I do, I love them, right? But going out to a school, I don't think we'd have good attendance. I really don't, because people are very busy. Even when they've got stuff going on at this local school, it's not like, parents feel stressed even with that stuff, right? That even seems overwhelming. So for me, the idea that it would be, I agree with the part about the principals giving their presentation. That would be really nice, because you could even take like a little tour or something, right? And that would be nice. But the meetings we've had at the local schools for levies and things like that have not been well attended, and there's a big, big cost. It's like, if you look at our audience right now, many of those are school employees, right? They've been here since 7. They'll be here till 9:30, right? But this is close to their desk. And so we're saying, yeah, okay, let's pack everything up. Let's go to a school, and it's just asking an awful lot. And I worry that it might be a bit of a vanity act for us, because we like to get out into the schools, right? And there's a lot of organization that goes into a school board meeting, but it would be double or 3 times that if you had to go to one of these schools, and our production quality would go down. It would have to, because we've spent 30 years trying to get all these mics to work, right? And it's still sketchy, right? And the cameras and all this stuff. And so that's why I made the motion. I just think I like a lot of parts of it, but for me, it's just, we have a central location, it's very reliable, people can come to it. It's easier for the employees, it's easier for the guests, and I think that supersedes the many good qualities you talked about.
Member Tyson?
Well, I think, and I like your enthusiasm. I think, I love going to carnivals. I love to being in the buildings at the events, the science fairs, and turkey bingo. Julie and I love that. But I think we're thinking very elementary level here. Parents that I've known that have been over at games or have a break over at the high school will come in and hop into a meeting and leave. And I also think as a large district, we work to kind of get elementary parents onboarded with where things are at. And I've heard that at meetings over the years. I'm going to come to a school board meeting because I want to learn where the DO, the district office is. I want to see the new high school. I want to see where things are at when so-and-so goes to the middle school. So I think we lose that. We lose that part of people coming into this is really the hub of the heartbeat, the hub kind of what goes on in the district. So I'm just concerned that we lose the continuity of our meetings. Like Member Christensen said, someone would show up and oh my gosh, we're out in Scandia and they live, on the other end. So I think the continuity and the consistency would just go out the door or out the window. So that is a big concern for me. And I think we do need to think of not just the elementary buildings. I mean, the high school girls that came tonight.
This proposal was for all buildings in the district.
Member Tyson has the floor.
Sorry.
Please let her finish.
Oh, all buildings. Well, I mean, I agree that then you're really going all over the place. So I think the continuity would be lost, and this is a spot that we need to be, and I think it's the boardroom. It's convenient. I worry about the staff being inconvenienced, trying to wrap up, as Member Rayfield said, and trying to get things out there. And just all the last minute things that are done here with the listening session. So anyway, I think in theory, some of that could work, but I think there's too many conflicting factors for me, so I would not support it.
Member Corcoran?
Last but not least, right? No, I think we have to think of this as a business meeting. I mean, it really is the business of our district. I mean, it's a high-level business meeting. So to me, this is our business. This is our place of work. This is our place that we get our business done. So, and I do love going to elementaries. I love going to the other schools, but I think we have to be consistent, and we've always had it here. So I think people like that. I like consistency, and I think people need to know where to go. Remember, Christensen said a great, I mean, the whole listening session, that could definitely happen, because people aren't going to, they're just so used to coming here. So then, yeah, I just feel like we need to stay for consistency reasons here. But I do like, I mean, I love visiting the schools for events and things like that, but that's not what we're talking about. So I would like to keep it here.
So I would like to say for myself, I like to keep it here solely because there's not another form of government that moves their meeting around, and we are elected officials and we are a government entity. And I think it's important to keep that consistency. We could, however, if people wanted to, schedule a special called meeting once a month to allow those building people to present to us for no other business, sit as a board, have the presentation, and adjourn the meeting. That's always a possibility. I do really like the idea of being out in the community and have participated in community conversations in the past, and it is nice to see some folks who maybe wouldn't travel in. But I agree with Member Christensen, and it was actually something that I had mentioned before. Somebody showing up, anticipating us to be here and not finding us would be a concern of mine. So any further discussion? Member Eveline?
I really like that idea of maybe doing the building presentations as a separate meeting. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about if it would be palatable to add. I guess it would be probably nine-ish opportunities for those presentations, but I myself would be open to it. I would like to have further discussion on that. It doesn't seem like there's any benefit to postponing, so I'm not going to make another motion to do that. But I appreciate you guys all giving it thought. Perhaps this is something we can pick up at a later date, or we can move with Member Peterson's idea. Going to the buildings for those presentations. I absolutely agree with some of the concerns, which is why I was thinking a mid-month meeting might make more sense than one where we do have the listening session. I think I was surprised at the cost. I was actually pretty excited to see $1,000. I'm sitting here thinking this isn't even going to be a district expense, because I'm fairly certain I can find the funds for that. So it wouldn't be any cost to or any financial cost to the district. But with that, give the floor back to Member Peterson.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Member Rayfield's motion, which is to keep the board meeting at this location, signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, the ayes have it. Motion passes. We will move on to new business. The first reading, Transportation Employee Drug and Alcohol Testing Policy 313, formerly Transportation Employee Drug and Alcohol Policy 430. Dr. Massey.
Yeah, I think, thank you for that, Mr. Chair. The background on this policy is all school district transportation employees whose positions require a commercial driver's license will be required to undergo drug and alcohol testing in accordance with federal law and the applicable provisions of this policy. As Mr. Chair indicated, one of the most significant changes is in the title itself, referencing this as a testing policy, which is, I think, more accurately stated. You can see the other changes in this policy, which create greater alignment with the Department of Transportation, federal requirements, and so on. So, again, no action tonight on this policy.
All right, at this time, thank you for the first reading. At this time, I would entertain a motion to recess.
So moved.
So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Yeah, we have a motion to recess and a second. It'll be a 10-minute recess.
10 minutes?
10 minute?
5.
5-minute recess?
Let's do 5.
All right, all those in favor of recess
Aye.
signify by aye.
Aye.
All right, we'll be back at 5. All right, at this time, I would entertain a motion to return to business.
So moved.
Second?
Motion and a second, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All right, we are returned. Thank you, everyone. We will move to new business 9.2. You know, I was wondering that, and I looked, I didn't see anything, but let's go ahead and do it just so we're
Okay.
covered.
Member Peterson? Here.
Here?
Member Rayfield?
Here.
Member Christensen?
Here.
Member Tyson's here. Member Rabelon?
Here.
Member Corcoran?
Here.
Member Hagelin?
Here.
All here.
All right, we will move to 9.2, first reading, meal charging policy 506. Dr. Massey.
Forest Lake Nutrition Services strives to ensure that all meals are healthy, well-balanced, and provide students the nutrition they need to succeed at school. Unpaid meal charges place a financial burden on the Nutrition Services Department. This policy is to ensure compliance with federal reporting requirements for the USDA Child Nutrition Program and to provide oversight and accountability for the collection of outstanding meal balances. This is the first reading. Policy Committee has had a chance to review this policy, and they are recommending the changes under Section 3 procedures, updating the language that would guarantee that a breakfast and lunch meal is provided for a student who is in a negative balance. Previously, the policy indicated that a breakfast meal could be denied. So no action tonight, and we will seek approval next month.
We will move on to 9.3, first reading, wellness policy 546.
All school districts that participate in the National School Lunch or School Breakfast programs are required by the Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010 to have a wellness policy that includes standards and nutrition guidelines for foods and beverages made available to students on campus during the school day, as well as specific goals for nutrition promotion and education, physical activity, and other school-based activities that promote student wellness. Again, first reading, there are a number of language and structural updates to this policy. It does require public input, and there was one public comment that was offered to eliminate caffeinated beverages. And caffeinated beverages are only provided at the high school, and the food service department would not support that in the sense of those are a la carte items. They have financial benefit to the operation, and parents are able to see what is purchased and can provide that communication or denial at the family level. So again, first reading on this policy, approval at the next meeting.
We'll move on to 9.4, first reading, 2024-26 FLAS Achievement and Integration Plan. Director Jacobson.
Good evening, President Peterson, Dr. Massey, members of the board. I'm here tonight with our teaching and learning coordinator for equity and family engagement, Brad Ward. He, along with myself, are going to be sharing some information around our Achievement and Integration Plan, our next 3-year plan. The Achievement and Integration Plan, as you know, is a plan that we've voluntarily participated in for a number of years in order to bring important resources into our district to support our teaching and learning department, our classroom teachers, and to bring resources and supports for raising the achievement level for all learners. Brad Ward has spent considerable time crafting this plan. He's assisted us with making sure that we are maintaining adherence to state statute regarding this plan, different requirements, and then ultimately seeing the plan through during each of its years that we have to review annually. So I'm going to turn it over to Brad Ward. He's going to lead us through a series of slides. This is the first reading of this plan tonight. We plan to give you some information and bring this back in about a month. So, Mr. Ward.
Thank you. One of the first things that I always do when presenting to different staff member groups, the next one will be at the PD day after spring break to a group of paras, and that is the definition for educational equity for us in Forest Lake. One of the reasons why I like to do that is because this is something that over 50 staff members, community members, students all had a chance to offer input on. If this weren't a formal meeting, I'd ask one of you to read it, which is what I do at the different trainings. So I will. Educational equity is each student having the resources and support needed for their educational journey each and every day, no matter what. I think that that's a really important thing to consider as we look at a plan like the Achievement and Integration Plan. As indicated by Director Jacobson, this is coming straight from statute. In Minnesota, it was first proposed in 1997, revised significantly in 1999, and continues to go moving forward from there. A couple of things that I think it's important to take note of, and that is that out of legislation, it does say pursue racial and economic integration, increase student achievement, create equitable educational opportunities, while reducing academic disparities based on students' diverse racial, ethnic, and economic backgrounds in Minnesota public schools. We are an eligible district to participate, and we've done so on a voluntary basis. I asked my former colleague, Carolyn Latati, how many times have we had this? Our first plan came when she presented it to the board in 2011. This is our 5th plan. It's also important to note that the Achievement and Integration Plan aligns very tightly with the work that several of you contributed to in the adoption of the 2020 strategic plan. I've highlighted a couple of things that I think are important. Our first belief as a school district is that educational equity is the foundation for everything we do. The other circle is that this is also guided by Goal 3, which is excellence in equitable learning opportunities. More specifically, we have given updates on the strategic plan, and the last one was in, I believe, August or September, where we provided updates on each of these objectives. The District Equity Steering Team is continuing to work on these right now, working on best ways to get student input to their experience at each of our schools. So what I'd like to do then is to review the plan goals. It's important to note that the Achievement and Integration Plan that we are presenting is targeted to increase the level of learning for all students, while especially increasing the trajectory among the students who identify as American Indian, Asian, Hispanic, and Black. This language comes straight from statute. When we put together a plan, the plan also provides to the district access to additional revenue. The revenue has to be spent at least 80% with direct student contact. The other 20% can go with professional development, or out of that 20%, a small amount can go to the administration of that. The plan determines how it is that we spend. Anything that is in an Achievement and Integration budget must be directly tied to the plan, and it is approved by the Department of Education. They serve as the watchdog for this work. When putting together the plan, this is not my plan. This is not Teaching and Learning's plan. This is a plan that has the input from several different groups, starting with, as mentioned, it's following in tight alignment with the strategic plan. it continues from guidance with the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee. The chair has signed off on this. I presented to them earlier this month and gave them a chance to provide input to our goals. We also meet as a multi-district collaborative. Roseville Area Schools is our racially isolated district partner. It also includes South St. Paul and Stillwater schools. The Curriculum, Instruction, and Equity Committee, their last meeting a couple of weeks ago, we presented the goals for that. And the monthly equity steering team also provided input. So the goals, starting with the goals, our first goal, the proficiency gap between students of color and American Indian students and white students for all grades tested for reading using the MCA within Forest Lake Area Schools will decrease from 18.1% to 5%. Goals have to fall under 3 different categories. The first category is achievement disparity, and this goal meets that. Our second goal is looking at the proficiency gap in math and science, but this time it's focused on Lionel Lakes STEM Elementary School. In this one, we are going to close the achievement gap in math, or the achievement disparity, from currently 7.7% to 1.6%, and in science from 30.4% to 6.1%. These end goals are by the end of the plan in 2026. This is also an achievement disparity goal. Our next one is dealing with culturally responsive student leadership, and this particular goal is building off from one that's in the current plan, which is this program that has been presented to 5th grade students throughout the district. In this particular one, we are looking at students who identify as either strongly agree or agree that their experiences in the program will elevate and make visible all narratives while improving their self-recognition as leaders. With our work in the multi-district collaborative, this is an integration goal along with some of our other strategies, which would include a youth executive board, which would be one for secondary students. This is, as I mentioned, an integration goal. Our fourth one is in partnership with the high school, and this is looking at rigorous courses. And we also have this as a build upon goal and strategy from our current plan. We were finding that we were not reaching the students who had the assets to be successful in rigorous courses, and so we were successful in identifying them, but we found that we could do more to support them. That's why in this goal, you can see it's going not only identification, but also success through earning at least a C in the course. We are integrating these rigorous courses. MDE says that that is an allowable goal. The last goal type is with teacher equity, and it's to make sure that all students have equitable access to high quality teachers. In this particular one, again, we are building upon a current goal. In our current plan, it was introducing teachers to culturally responsive teaching, as well as working to retain our teachers and licensed staff of color. In this particular one, we are drilling down to increase teacher proficiency in culturally responsive teaching through a series of competencies. As I mentioned, this is a teacher equity goal. sometimes when looking at the goals, it's possible to lose sight of who it's ultimately impacting. So these are images from the last 9 months or so. Member Christensen was referring to the Black History Month event. If you look in the upper left-hand corner, that is the BIPOC student leader group, parts of them from the middle school, while the American Indian Parent Group has their own type of funding and work. You can see they have the honoring ceremony, but we do support additionally through some in-kind work, so they're included there. We had our first Asian American and Pacific Islander night last May. And in the upper right-hand corner, you can see family engagement that took place last May with one of our cultural liaisons capturing an image from one of the families that she works with. That ends my presentation.
All right. Thank you for the presentation, and at this time I would entertain any questions.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I just want to be clear, we put this differently than it has been in the past because we have 3 new members on the board, and this will be the first time they've seen a plan like this, to give them the opportunity to review and ask some questions so they have all the information before we put it on the agenda to vote on. So, Member Eveline?
Thank you. I'm not going to dig in too deep on questions because I actually have a meeting scheduled with JP tomorrow to dig in a little bit deeper. But I'm interested, you did say that this is a state-funded plan. I'm curious, what kind of dollars are we talking about in total funding allocation? And the other question I would have would be, what is the soft cost of this to the district? I understand the financial side might be covered by the state, but what does it cost in terms of time for both our administrators and our teachers, and most importantly, our students, that's not necessarily funded or accounted for?
So for this year, we received our allocation amount. For the coming year, it is estimated at $820,000. So you can extrapolate this out. We're looking close to $3 million over the life of the plan. In terms of soft cost, what I would say is that when you look at our strategic plan, as well as some of the other things that we are working at as a district, these are things we do anyway.
What I would, in addition to that your question, very good one, Member Eveline, is it creates opportunities outside of the school day, as you can see on these pictures. These are images of events that primarily are happening in the evenings, bringing those students back into the school. I think it doesn't take a lot of research to suggest that when students feel comfortable in their settings and they see their school as a place where we're celebrating who they are as individuals, that they're more likely to feel comfortable and able to learn in those spaces. So,
yeah. It's certainly complex. There's a lot of moving parts to it. That's why I asked Member Peterson and Dr. Massey to go through the first reading process. There's really a lot to unpack here, and it's one of those cases where I am behind the curve being a new member. So thank you in advance for your time tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to learning much more before we take action on this next month.
Member Rayfield?
Yeah. Years ago, the state kind of forced schools like Forest Lake to, well, at the time we thought we were doing pretty good because we looked at our average, right? How our average students were doing, and we compare that to the state average, and we were always a little bit above most of the time. And we felt pretty proud of that, right? And then the state forced us to start looking at aggregate groups, and it was not a great picture, right? And what we were finding is that the average was hiding kids that were really falling behind, and it really looks like this builds on that ability to kind of look at groups and avoid that averaging and find those kids that are falling behind, give them the support they need to really really move forward, and not just the support, but also kind of the social environment as well to support them, right? I mean, I think one of the things I really like about this is that when we see all these groups, and we see these kids in our schools, every student can say, I'm a Ranger, right? You know, if you're a black student coming to our school, you know, you will see there's our affinity group. You can say, hey, I'm a Ranger. I can see other kids like this. And I think, you know, let's say you're a poor kid who's moved around, you know, a kid who's, because of a family situation, has moved around a lot, doesn't have the income, they're falling behind economically, right? We help support them, we help them catch up. They're a Ranger, right? And I think you kind of, how do you envision this tying together of the social environment, making this an inclusive place where everybody feels like they're a Ranger? How does that help these aggregate groups that have fallen behind and been kind of missed sometimes in the past? How does that all come together?
Yeah. Sure. I don't know that I would add anything to what you just said. I think it's maybe repeating, just trying to paraphrase what you shared. I think it's true that when students feel like their environment reflects their values and values them as students, they are and they can find camaraderie within the environment that they're within. And let's not forget the fact that in Forest Lake, some of our students have an opportunity to feel more alone than in other districts to the south. And so when we can do something about that by creating these affinity groups, I think we do right by those students and by other students who join those groups, even though they might not be part of that demographic and they want to be part of something. So I think that, yeah, in those cases that we extend the school day for kids and we create more opportunities for them. I'll also add to your answer, if it's okay, Member Rayfield, that I think sometimes it's easier to learn from somebody from whom you've got a lot of commonality with. When we've got a shared background, shared history, shared culture, shared perspective on the world. And when that doesn't exist, and there's nothing wrong with that, there are different tricks or methodologies that you can use to convey an idea or information, even though our backgrounds might be marginally or vastly different. And those different teaching methodologies sometimes come innate to people, and sometimes they need to be grown. And through our Achievement Integration Plan and the work that Brad Ward has done with culturally responsive teaching and a number of other things, we create time, not a soft cost to kids, and I think that's a really super good question, but during professional development time, and to really talk through how do we connect new ideas and information in which there might be some barrier between us. Not that it was a barrier that we created, it just exists. And research has really shown that works. And it works not only for our kids that might come from a different background than I as a former math teacher, but for all kids who might struggle with that concept. So it really is, in my opinion, a pretty good program.
All right, thank you.
All right.
I as well. I'm going to be meeting with you tomorrow, so I look forward to it.
And I'm looking forward to it as well.
I just have a question. So what would happen if we didn't have this program? Because my expectation of administration and teachers is that they teach everybody, regardless of what their race is. And if they see a student falling behind, they offer the support services, tutoring, whatever it may be, to help get them there, regardless of race. And our society has become so laser focused on race and gender and all these other things. By creating these groups and identifying now, putting people into a bucket because of their race, isn't that kind of racist in its own manner?
You know, I'd say if we didn't have this program, we would maintain that focus. We would try to do exactly what it is that you just said.
Right.
But I think with this program, what it does is it allows us to staff our teaching and learning department in a way that we wouldn't be able to otherwise. We would see a reduction there in the number of people that we could put into teaching and learning leadership positions. We would have fewer resources in terms of professional development for teachers to break through, like you just described, with kids that might need something different, and I have exhausted every toolkit that I have in my drawer in order to do that, and I'm now begging for new ideas on what that could look like. And through PD that we can pay for, or we can create and pay, on our own, through a program like this, we're able to do some of what you just described. I don't think that we would lose an interest in pushing through with those kids. I just think we would have fewer resources to do so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just to build on,
Go ahead.
to heighten how we're changing demographically. When I first started working with achievement and integration 8 years ago, we had about 650 students who identified as students of color. If you look at our last count, we're around 1,200 now. So it is a fast-growing group, and our district needs to be nimble to meet all students' needs.
Member Christensen?
Thank you. I'm a new member too, so I kind of wanted to do some background and figure out. I looked on the MD website, and it said in 2021-2022, there are 171 participating districts that are doing these plans out of 331 districts. So, we're right in line with other districts. This isn't something, really unusual that we're trying to do. And I also just wanted to Member Hagelin's point and to Mr. Jacobson's point, I feel like you don't know what you don't know. So I might try to be helping a kid as much as I can, and I don't know. I don't know how to help them. I don't know what's going on at home. I don't know. And so then, but perhaps with a little bit more information that I could get from this, wonderful dollars that we're getting, because we apply for these dollars and we're not doing anything that we can't do or shouldn't do. I mean, other districts are applying for these dollars as well. So I might go to professional development day and I might go, that I never thought about that because I didn't have to, or that wasn't something that I thought about it, but now I do, but now I know. And I thought about it and now I know, and I feel like maybe, I might be able to help a student a little bit more. So I can see where professional development could be very helpful to some, or to most instructors and teachers, all staff really. So thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I can add, I think we might agree that some kids may need more help or support than other kids. I think it's a mistake to assume that because you're free and reduced price lunch, you need help. Just as it would be a mistake to assume that just because you're an African-American student or student of color that you need help. At the same time, this plan allows us to be additive. We have resources that we wouldn't have otherwise to meet the needs of kids who are falling behind, who may need additional support. I think, Member Christensen, your point is well taken, that there is a learning curve that I would contend all of us are on with respect to how do we meet the needs of a growing, diverse student population and staff population, as we understand their background, their cultures, and their needs, so that we can better serve. And this program allows us to do that. So there are a lot of moving parts, there are a lot of components that allow us to do a lot of things in a creative way and a flexible way to meet the needs of kids who may be struggling. And I would finish or conclude by offering the idea that this, if we're addressing achievement gap, this is not about lowering the bar for some and therefore we close the achievement gap. It's about raising the floor and the bar for every kid throughout the district. Some kids need more boost and more help to do that, but we want every kid in this district to thrive at their absolute best. And this plan gives us the tools and resources to do that.
First we have Member Tyson, then we'll go to Member Rayfield.
I just wanted to add that I've always been proud of our district for promoting educational experiences like this and for the positive educational outcomes that come from the Achievement and Integration dollars. In goal number 4, Mr. Ward and his group have looked at that data and we know who's falling behind. And in our school district, we want all students to reach their educational potential. And that's what this Achievement Integration money does for us. So thank you for all the hard work, Mr. Ward. I love the AAPI in May last year. Oh, is it happening again this year? The event in May?
I don't think they were planning to do one this year,
Okay.
but probably next year.
Okay, well, I'm gonna get on the calendar. And then one thing I thought of, and this is, sorry, Superintendent, maybe off topic, but have we ever thought of for our staff to have affinity spaces? So that, you know, to keep that retention?
Yes, we have, not in formalized groups, but we've offered coaching, and some of them were part when Equity Alliance was still in business and we were a member. They offered spaces for affinity groups for BIPOC teachers from various districts, and we did have a few who are still here who were a part of that.
Well, thank you so much.
So, you know, when we put our strategic plan together, that was done by a large portion of the, I mean, a lot of the public came in and kind of helped, didn't kind of help us, they put a lot of time into that, right? And I was really excited to see how focused people were on that column on equity and how much time they put into that. So that equity is a critical part of what we do in a school district through our, and we're driven through our strategic plan, right? That we met with the public, we talked it through, and our community said that's what we want to do. The other thing is that in this school district, we value academic achievement in all our students, right? So those are two things that drive this district. If we don't have this equity plan, we will still do those things. But this equity plan is about getting the financing to do those two things that I talked about, right? And so that if we do not do this plan, we are still driven by the strategic plan and by the fact that we support every student and we want to do everything for them to support them. We're just going to be doing it with $800,000 less money. Does that sound right?
Any further questions, comments? I did want to ask a question and don't want to put you on the spot. So feel free to respond tomorrow by email, but I wanted to ask what surrounding districts submit a similar plan to ours. And I don't expect you to know it off the top of your head. So if you want to email the board tomorrow with that information and blind copy everybody, it'd be great.
I'd like to give you the accurate answer on that.
When you want to know who has plans?
Yeah, surrounding districts from Forest Lake.
Essentially everyone south of us,
Okay.
including Stillwater, White Bear Lake. Centennial wasn't part of our group, so I'm not certain. I assume they are, but I don't know that for certain.
We can check.
Yeah, appreciate that. Any further?
I just want to say thank you. This was really informative, and I just know how much work goes in. I can't imagine the amount of hours, and what we do for our students go beyond what I don't think people even realize, and all the things that we offer until you really look at a plan like this and look at all the great opportunities that our students have. So thank you for putting this all together and telling us all about it tonight. It was really eye-opening. Thank you.
Any further questions, comments? Seeing none, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, at this time, we would review upcoming calendar dates, and I would entertain a motion to recess to go into closed session to review and discuss the superintendent goals and mid-year evaluation.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.